Welcome to Slash Forward. Probably the only thing more alarming than the unsettling horror of outer space is when that unnamed unknown horror takes up residence inside of you. Sputnik asks the question, what if you came back from a simple orbital mission with an insatiable desire to feed off of the hormones contained inside of your fellow human beings? As the danger and violence escalates, it won't be easy to derive an answer, but we'll start as we open in space, the final frontier. In 1983, as a couple of Russian cosmonauts prepare for their re-entry. Everything checks out okay, so they wait for approval to detach and salivate over thoughts of what they're going to do once back on terra firma. After a successful undocking, something the boys have quite a bit of practice with, they begin the descent. There's an unusual turbulence event, but nothing they can't manage, until the revelation that this was caused by something attached to the outside of the module that seems to want to come hang out with them. This they cannot manage. They have a seemingly gentle touchdown, but the nearby villager who comes to greet these national heroes finds the co-pilot to have his brain scooped out while the commander's gurgling nearby and spewing some foul liquid. We then transition to a hospital ethics board review. The subject of discussion is whether Tatiana's treatment of a patient rises to the standard of gross negligence. Apparently, she blocked the young man's psychogenic seizures by holding his head underwater until he agreed to stop having them. The choice before her now is to resign willingly or be referred to the prosecutor's office.
I did what I know is right.
You go, girl. The proceedings attracted the attention of Colonel Semerdov, who has a special patient who might require her unique brand of cowgirl therapy. All he's asking her to do is take a look and see if it interests her. In exchange, he'll handle the review board. On the way over, he reveals that this is related to the Orbit 4 mission. They lost contact with the crew and then recovered an amnesiac commander with unique symptoms. Also, this is all very much hush-hush, of course. Since she signed an NDA, they forego the burlap sack during the ride out to the facility. When they arrive, she's advised to stick with the colonel until they can get her security clearance handled. Her first view into their attempts reveals they've been trying to use hypnosis to get inside that sweet, sweet brain. Ya boy is getting moist with anticipation, but Commander Veshnikov thinks he's a Hollywood actor on a TV show. He's awfully sorry about his poor response to their efforts, but it's likely that his intensive training steeled his mind against these things.
That's bullshit.
Tired of all this prodding and cell life, he insists on being let go or given a trial. Mrs. Altati needs to dive in head first. She immediately confronts the patient, but tossing in a treat like her is like tossing meat to the wolves. Or a treat to a pack of clowns, if you will. She opens with a trust gesture by agreeing to call his mommy for him. Then, since baby steps are recommended, she ends their session. In the observation room, it's revealed that the teacup was a trick. He has reduced tactile sensitivity, which is a sign of PTSD and some peripheral nerve damage. This is pretty basic bitch stuff, so she's ready to move on to the next patient. In accordance with their agreement, she's shown to her room where she will await transport the next morning. She unpacks and verifies there are no outside calls without authorization, and the radio picks up no broadcasts. But there is a huge boiler that provides all the hot water you could ever want. She suffers from restless leg syndrome, which results in a late-night jog around the premise. This inadvertently causes her to cross paths with one of the prisoner work units. This particular man's crime? Excessive handshaking. When she returns to her room, she is summoned by Semirdov as it's now time to reveal the true nature of Veshnikov's condition. He begins to writhe and seep in his sleep, and eventually shits a slimy log out of his mouth. The worm-like organism quickly reveals its complex form, and the men encourage her to go in for a closer look. And I'm not sure what your assessment of this situation would be, but her first instinct is to give it a pet. Luckily, there is thick glass between them. She needs a bit of a refresher after this and is informed that the creature comes and goes every night. Veshnikov is perfectly healthy otherwise and seems to have no knowledge of his passenger. Now her worth is revealed as they desperately need someone willing to do anything necessary to save a patient, even if it kills them. Her interest has been piqued, so she requests all materials they have collected so far. The creature came out and attacked a nurse at the rehab facility on the first night, which is why he's here now. There's a parasitic bond, and attempts to remove the creature causes his vitals to decline. He is essentially acting as its spacesuit, and in turn, it provides him with increased physical and healing stats. It can survive outside of him for about 2 hours and expands itself by taking in oxygen. As she gathers information information, it's revealed that there's some tension between her and the lead researcher, Dr. Rigel. He's concerned about preserving his legacy and does not want anyone stealing his shine. Her research directs her toward lineage, which leads her to get approval to call an orphanage to look for a young boy she believes to be Veshnikov's son. When she feels ready again, she calls for another session. The strategy this time is to immediately put him on the back foot by revealing that his co-pilot is deceased and he's being held because it kinda looks like he did it. She then tries to bring his ego back down to earth by diminishing the value of his accomplishments and revealing her knowledge of his abandoned bastard son. She hits him with all of these hard truths to get his body all riled up in order to test his endocrine levels against the baseline. She is hoping the hormone profile might reveal some information about what Slimer's feeding on in there. Due to her suspicions about the role his internal bodily environment plays, she recommends they provide a more normal daytime environment to promote a better clinical profile. The next day, they do decide to transfer him to one of their guest suites, and he's a bit suspicious. He only has some state-sanctioned videotapes to watch, but after a little rejiggering, he's able to tune into some news that indicates the public expects to welcome him home in approximately 3 weeks. Tatiana later comes to apologize and earn some trust by admitting she was trying to get him worked up for testing purposes, even if it was hard to hear. But he confides that when his girlfriend died, he didn't know that his son had survived. He found out a week before blastoff, so his intention was to circle back with him afterward. That's why he has such an urgent desire to get out of here, but they've reached the limit of what she can share. That night, she again approaches the window, but this time she bows down to seem less threatening. As she observes behaviors, there are indicators that it recognizes the importance of the earthly trinket Veshnikov chose to take into orbit with him. This triggers something in her and she requests they lift the glass. They agree, but on the condition that she wear a protective suit. When she finally breaches the threshold, she brings the toy with her and discovers that it does seem to appeal to its gentler nature. But before she can make a meaningful connection, she slips on its goo. It's really self-conscious about this, causing it to respond in an aggressive manner. They hit the infrasonics, so they're able to pull her out and close the window. Afterward, the Colonel steps in to have a little face-off with his toy, so he can imply through nonverbal expression how he intends to bring it to heel. You might have thought this was a bad outcome, but now Tati has more information. Through its interaction with the toy, which has emotional value to Veshnikov, she believes that he is not fully unconscious. This is exciting, but also alarming. Her assumption is that it's merging with him to get stronger and will soon shed his ass like a cocoon. She thinks the healing process would be accelerated if they move this operation to Moscow. However, the Colonel has been sending false reports of Veshnikov's recovery to them in order to prevent them from sending a destroy order, so they're in a sticky situation. When she gets a chance, she confronts Rigel with the assumption that he's been withholding information. If both parasite and host are growing, then it must be eating more than just what Veshnikov is eating. She needs to know what up, and she's in it for the glory of human preservation. She'll assist him in earning his Nobel Prize without taking any credit whatsoever if he comes clean. So, as the subject is drugged and returned to his holding cell, Rigel smuggles Tatiana behind the curtain so she may witness the men's secret dealings. What unfolds is a two birds, one stone situation in which they subdue prisoners in a cage and allow the foul beast full access to a second dinner buffet of raw human innards, which it accesses through the neck hole. When they return, she is a changed woman. Rigel explains that after it fed the first time, Veshnikov got better. Over time, they have come to recognize it feeds on cortisol produced in the brain through fear.
This discovery will change the world.
Oh yeah? How's that? Without further explanation, I'm not sure we should be trusting him. The next morning, she presents him with a little gift, clearance to go for a run, but with no foreplay whatsoever. She drops the whole shebang on him, causing him to withdraw and start acting squirrely. He's afraid they're being observed, so he asks her to meet him later. At sleepy time, he regurgitates the pill and crushes it into his tea. Then he does what he do, giving the night nurse one of these before suggesting she come and chill with Daddy for a minute. He's got some state-sanctioned video cassettes that are screaming to be unwound. Once she's out, he's free to take whatever action he desires. So he dismantles his television and rendezvous with Tati. He uses the TV magnet to create a malfunction that draws the guard away from his post so they can walk freely in his absence. They eventually arrive at the morgue so he may feast his eyes upon the feasts he has been enjoying in his sleep. It's impossible to ignore all of the details of his condition laid out so clinically before him. Understanding what they know, he now admits that he is passively experiencing the thrill of these kills in conjunction with his visitor. Then he shows her the condition of his co-pilot, tucked away in the darkness to maintain a positive public story of astronautical triumph. He asks for help extending this out for a couple more weeks so he has a chance at getting an audience with the review board rather than disappearing forever. He's kind of owed that when you think about it. Just so we remember he's still around, we see that Veshnikov Jr. is still out here trying to get at the package that is rightfully his, but withheld for unknown reasons. Upon her return, Tatiana is summoned again to the Colonel. He would like to apologize for not sharing with her the murder dynamic of this whole situation. You see, he was thinking this might be used as a weapon, and the test subjects were criminals, so they were likely to have been eaten anyway. At any rate, he is in it now. Facing an inevitable court-martial, he's just trying to salvage something from this to make the sacrifice worth it. Arrangements are made for spectating another feeding in the hope this will change her mind about things. But this isn't her way, and she cannot sit by idly. She demands entry and then concentrates on mitigating her fear response so she can control that juicy cortisol and try to appeal to its Veshni side. She gently sings a song of his youth, breaking the wall and connecting with the human aspect. But when this ding-dong breaks the concentration, the whole thing falls apart. This looks pretty bad, but the Colonel pleads for just a little more time to strengthen the link so they can control it. Later on, it's revealed that the co-pilot has a tumor and a hormone condition, which is why he isn't a good enough host. Then she leans in to fake examine him so she can have a private conversation in which she enlists Reigel's help with a special plan. He brings her the materials she requested and is then surprise enlisted when she starts doing the thing right in front of him. She attempts to release Veshnikov, but he's still reeling from the idea that he almost killed her. Tati forgives him and explains how she intends to inject him with the hormone cocktail that will drive out the creature and hopefully cause it to perish. He's conflicted because his pal did save him, even though it only really chose him for his delectable hormones, the masculine bastard. As a final ace in the hole, she promises to take him to his son so he may rectify his biggest regret. This does the trick, and just in time as the alert goes out, Reigel elects to stay behind, thinking he may be able to wriggle his way out of this somehow. To that end, he locks himself in the Colonel's office so he has a free line to Moscow and immediately begins tattling to them about what's been going on. After the Colonel gives the order to retrieve the escapees and only fire on Tatiana, he then returns to his office where he finds Reigel. He knows the game is over now, but with nothing left to lose, he takes revenge against his betrayer. They ultimately reach a dead end where Tati confirms conclusively that there is a kill order out for her. With their backs against the wall, despite there being no hospitals nearby, there is little choice but to toss over the syringe and rip it. Sure enough, when Alpha Squad closes in, a now fully engorged creature emerges and gives them something to keep their hands full, for its own benefit, of course. Using this distraction, they borrow one of the fleet and bust out. And to the Colonel's credit, he leads by example and waltzes right out into the death hall through the thick smoke to see if he can salvage his legacy. They go at it, and in the aftermath, we see them both have sustained injuries. Since the pair are still bonded, Veshnikov's condition worsens. With nothing but open valleys ahead of them, Tatiana pulls over and drags him out so he can enjoy one last sunrise. Then the recovery team arrives and she explains her conclusion that they are now fully symbiotic and unable to live one without the other. The Colonel recognizes this intuitively, which is why he brought the slimy bitch with him. Knowing no loyalty, the Colonel attempts to punish a girl, causing Veshni to dig deep and find the power to take control and handle his dirty business. And now, in desperate need of healing, he welcomes his friend to come in his mouth and down his gullet, even though it's probably picked up a lot of dirt. Tati's now thinking of Moscow and finding another way, but Veshnikov already has and shoots himself while in his weakened state. He and his guest then slowly bleed out while the authorities close in. But it wasn't the end. Tati gets off a bus in town and we see the caretakers finally relented and given the orphan his package, containing bowling shoes. He just wanted to toss a few frames, my dude. But then we learn the determined young boy
I'm a girl. My name is Tatiana.
was Tatiana the whole time, underlining her dogged tenacity and motivation for adopting Veshnikov's child. Like a rose sprouting from a crack in the concrete, there's beauty and redemption to be found in even the most slimiest of esophageal parasites. If you really want to get deep into the disturbing nature of an extraterrestrial abduction, watch this video next. Now that we're here, I want to congratulate you for making it to the end of the video and affirm that you are a very special person because of it. And if you enjoyed the video, I would love for you to become part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.